Welcome to Unapologetically ADHD. I'm Patricia Young, MSW, and I'm an ADHD former therapist and current coach.
I'm Alex McLaughlin, MSW and LICSW, and I'm an ADHD therapist. This is a podcast with two friends processing what it's like to live in body minds that diverge from neuronormative standards and everything that comes with it, the good, the bad, and the beautifully messy.
We aim to release 2 or more episodes per month. This podcast is not meant to be a substitute for help from a licensed mental health practitioner. Hey there, and welcome. Today, Alex and I are going to be talking about OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Is it disorder, Alex? I don't like the disorder part, but I don't have a lot to say over that. Alex is nodding. I'm going to turn this over to Alex. So our intention is to talk about what is OCD, but more importantly, how does it show up? Because I was diagnosed, within the last year or so, and I didn't think I had OCD. And then when I learned how it showed up, I was like, So let's turn this over to Alex. Alex, what is OCD?
So first, I'll tell you what OCD is not. It is not obsessive cup disorder, nor is it obsessive Christmas disorder. It's also not as simple as liking things to be neat and organized, having a preference for cleanliness or hygiene. It's not a fun or cute adjective that we can choose to use and emphasize a preference for something. So, if it's not these things, then what is it? OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Patricia mentioned that she doesn't like the use of the word disorder. I don't either. Unfortunately, there's not really, I think some people have used the word condition when describing things like autism. I don't personally use that word, but I've seen people use that in place of disorder. So I suppose people could say OCC, obsessive compulsive condition. I guess with that caveat, I'm going to use the term OCD because it's so widely recognized as that. And also that's the language the DSM uses, but that doesn't mean that we agree with that language or we endorse the use of that language. So it's a mental health condition that is characterized by obsessions and compulsions that cause distress and impact a person's life significantly. Obsessions are recurrent and persistent thoughts, urges, or images that intrude on a person's mind and are unwanted and cause distress. So obsessions, like I said, can take the form of thoughts. They can also take the form of memories, urges, impulses, ideas, or even sensations in our body. Compulsions, sometimes also called rituals, are acts which can be physical, mental. They can include avoidance, reassurance seeking. And these are things that a person does in response to their obsessions in an effort to reduce their distress or prevent a feared outcome from happening. So I want to pause there and see, I guess, if there are questions that you're having, Patricia, or you think the audience might have based on those things so far. Sorry to put you on the spot. I didn't prep you for this.
No, it's fine. I was laughing because when things are very technical, my brain just goes, ugh, boring. What does it look like? And I know that we need to set a foundation, but when I look at criteria, I'm just like, well, that doesn't fit me. What about this? Can we talk about what some of those things look like a little bit, just in case anybody else's brain is getting let's talk about what this looks like?
Yes, and that's actually what the next. So to be transparent, I gave a presentation at the Neurodivergent Lived Experience Summit, and I'm referencing my slides. So to be transparent, that's what I'm going off of, and that's the next slide, actually.
Okay.
So one thing I'll say is that we kind of use the term themes, there's themes within OCD. this is not like a clinical or diagnostic term, but this is just kind of a way to categorize the subtype or I use the word subtype and theme interchangeably. So it's kind of a way to like differentiate between what someone's OCD flavor is versus another person. And I will say that themes are not always consistent throughout life. They might shift and morph and change. And typically, OCD is what we call ego dystonic. So, someone that has pedophilia OCD, meaning they have obsessional doubts or intrusive thoughts about engaging in pedophilic behaviors. When I say it's ego dystonic, that means that they don't actually have the desire. It doesn't match with what they want. So they're having these thoughts and it's causing great distress because this is not something that they want or desire. It's not who they are. So some of the themes are harm OCD. So an example of this is someone that worries about harming themselves or harming others. And again, this is not something they want to do. The next theme is sexual orientation OCD. So, this is where a person might have obsessional doubts or intrusive thoughts about, am I the sexual orientation I claim I am? Like, oh, I saw this person that's the same gender as me and I found them attractive. Does that mean I'm actually not straight, even though I've claimed I was straight my whole life? That's an example. We just gave an example of pedophilia OCD. Patricia, do you want to talk about relationship OCD?
I'll try. I don't know if I can. I have it. Oh, I'm feeling very insecure. That's okay. And part of my OCD is wanting reassurance. And Alex and I have to work on this. Well, Alex has to work on it more than I do in our relationship because so much of what I do is reassurance seeking around things. And there's a difference between getting a reality check and reassurance seeking, but they can often look the same. Do you have any input on how you can tell if it's reassurance seeking or a reality check, Alex?
Yeah, typically, if it's a reality check, it's information that the person truly doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's maybe like something that they've never asked about before. So for me, this has shown up at work. I didn't know when I was under supervision, I didn't know what my supervisor wanted me to do for a specific section of my note. And so I was like, "Oh, am I reassurance seeking?" And then I was talking with my OCD therapist at the time, and they're like, "Well, you don't have that information, so you're actually just information gathering because that's not information you already have." To me, reassurance seeking is like, I already have the information, you've already told me, and so I am and it's not as black and white as this because we can still reassurance seek for something that we don't know, especially in relationship OCD. Right. So I think there's also an element of needing to trust in the relationship and trust in what the person has demonstrated and trust in that connection for them to bring, like, if there's a rupture, for them to bring that to you versus like, because like I've asked, there was a time where I think I said something and like we were kind of, my friends and I were joking around and I was very concerned I offended them while we were joking around. And I was like, "You had a facial expression. What did that mean? Does that mean you're mad at me?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, my therapist at the time was like, "Alex, you're not really giving your friends like an opportunity to like have a rupture.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trusting them to tell you. You're not giving that relationship that opportunity. You're just kind of jumping to assuming that you hurt someone and that you're trying to fix it or like, do that repair right away." So I don't think it's as black and white as like, I don't already you don't already have the information. That means it's always reality checking or sensing. I don't remember the words you used, but I think it can be kind of nuanced.
Yeah. What I'm aware of, and I'll let you put the language that you need to on this. As a high masking, late diagnosed AFAB, assigned female at birth, and I tend to fawn and I a PDA, What I often do is a lot of fawning behavior, and I suspect that that's under the OCD doing a lot of checking, and it really is more OCD. So what that would look like is if I get together with someone and I have a really good time and I'm not monitoring if I'm talking too much, if they're talking too much, if I allow that monitor to drop and I have a really good time and then we leave and I feel really fulfilled, I assume that I've done something wrong because of
Mm,
this wound of being too much. And
mm,
what that might look like is to say like, hey, did you get enough time to talk? How was that for you? And that can be a reality check, and it can be reassurance seeking if I do it repetitively. And if there's
yeah.
something that I've said that's not accurate there, please feel free to reframe or share, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be reassurance seeking though if you don't like if it's someone that you've hung out with before and you've had conversations with before and like they've demonstrated to you that they will come to you when there's a rupture,
Mm-hmm.
I think it can still be reassurance seeking.
Yeah.
I don't know, sometimes what I've done is I've just told my friends, like, "Hey, I don't wanna reassurance seek all the time, so, like, I'm trusting in you to tell me if there's something that I did that hurts your feelings." So I
Mm-hmm.
because I know how it can be a lot of emotional labor when someone is reassurance seeking from you, like, it's a lot of labor on the receiver's part of that, and so I know what that's like to receive, and so I don't wanna put all that on my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been times in my life where that's it was un intolerable to not reassurance seek, so, like, it didn't feel like a choice, and I'm not saying that, like, when people do that, it often doesn't feel like a choice because it feels so intolerable to
Yeah.
tolerate the uncertainty that they have to do it, like, it's coming or it feels like they have to do it. I don't want it to come across like I'm blaming, right, because I understand both sides of it. Yeah, but I think it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and share some more? I have a question, but I don't want to derail our conversation. So why don't you share a little bit more and then I'll pop in when we have another break.
Mm. I mean, we're gonna tangent, that's what we do, so we've already tangented, it's fine, so we can
Right.
continue tangenting unless it tangents us away too much.
It's related because what I find with autistic people, and I can certainly say this is true for me, that when a rupture happens, when something happens that I'm very upset about, that I don't feel like I have control over, I can loop in my head. And before I knew I had OCD, what I would say is, I'm just going to process it until I need to not process it anymore. But I think that there's a place where this crosses over into OCD. And because our minds tend to get very focused on what's not working or what's distressing, I'm wondering what you have to say about that and if you can differentiate when it's one and when it's the other.
I guess what so OCD versus what?
I think it's very common with autistics to loop around things.
Mm.
And so when is it autistic looping and when is it OCD? Or do some autistics not loop and so is the looping always OCD?
I think I understand what you mean by looping, but can you, define it for folks that maybe aren't familiar with that language?
Sure. So if I have a rupture with someone or something happens that I'm unhappy about, that I go over the conversation over and over and over, and maybe I have an argument with the person, maybe I think about what I would have wanted to say, maybe I take the conversation and take it a couple different ways. It's not like it happened and it's distressing and I let it go, but I will rerun that conversation. And if it's something that's when I was in my OCD highs, I would often wake up in the middle of the night with distressing thoughts and the looping would start again and I just couldn't go
Mm.
back to sleep and it was constant. So I heard something, I wish I could remember what the word was, but somehow the shower seems to be a place where we often do a lot of our, I wish I could think of what the word was, but it's related to how we process in the shower.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, what you're describing from an OCD perspective, I would categorize that as mental review, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a mental compulsion, right? And you're right, autistic people, I think the term that is often used, I'm not a huge fan of, perseveration.
Mm-hmm.
So where you think about something repeatedly and like I think that monotropic thinking, that monotropic mind, we have a hard time putting things down.
Do you want to define monotropism?
Monotropism is where it's kind of like a one track mind where like we can get really engrossed or enmeshed, not enmeshed, engrossed in activity or a topic, and we have a hard time like shifting away from that. Is a way to kind of like it's like a theory of mind of autism. We can maybe get into that on a whole nother episode. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think like autistic people and ADHDers, we have a higher prevalence of OCD. I think because of the monotropism and because of the relational trauma that we often experience being neurodivergent in a world that's not suited for us. And we just experience so much relational trauma. It's hard to know like when one ends and the other starts. I guess for me, it's like if it's causing a person distress, if the like looping or the, mental review is impacting a person's life in a way that's like getting in the way of them living their life fully, to me, it's like, okay, well, whether or not it's an autism OCD thing, it's both, right? I think it's both. And so if it's causing distress and it's impacting someone's life, then that's something that I'm assuming they want to work on because they probably want some of their mental space back and they don't want to be spending so much time engaging in that mental compulsion. And so yeah, sometimes I'm like, it doesn't necessarily, it does matter when it's like an autism sensory thing. We're not gonna do exposures for that. Like, no, please
Mm-hmm.
stop doing that. Any OCD therapist out there, do not fucking do exposures for sensory sensitivities or for like social things. Like, do not make your fucking therapy participants sit and make eye contact. Like, that's just why are we unnecessarily, I'm getting heated. But why are we unnecessarily like putting people's nervous system in a sympathetic or dorsal vagal like shutdown response? That's just
Mm-hmm.
no. Like we're not gonna habituate to those things because our nervous systems can't. And like yeah, anyways. I need to breathe. Yeah, does it answer the question? That was a very long-winded answer, but I'm gonna info dump about all this shit because I'm passionate about it. So sorry, not sorry.
I love your info dumping and I love your passion. No, it does. And I think what happens is that because we've lived this for so long, I didn't know it was OCD until I was working with a coach who said, I think you've got some OCD. Because it's like, yeah, I always do this. I know I do this. So I think that's where it can be helpful when we work with someone that we find that some of the things that we experience are like, oh, and I was very resistant to medication, very, very, very resistant. And I started medication. And for me, it really made a difference. And my mind just quieted down quite a bit.
Mm,
I know it's not the same for everybody, but I was very resistant to medication. But man, what a difference.
yeah. Yeah, and there's some for the audience, there's a few different medications that are shown to be effective for OCD. One of them is venlafaxine, or I'm trying to think of what the, like, brand name of that is. I can't remember, but there's a few others. And what's, like, what's the most effective is a combination of medication and therapy. But, yeah, was there another medication that you can think of that's indicated for OCD?
I only know the generic name of Luvox, which may be the one that you mentioned.
I don't think so. I think it's something else. So,
Yeah, I take Luvox, and that's what my coach
mm,
takes. And it's really been a game changer for me. I feel like the volume of the noise has turned down. It's not that I don't get activated, but the volume is much, much lower, and I'm able to redirect my mind and my thinking where before it just would kind of grab me by the tail and swing me around in circles, is what it
mm,
felt like.
mm.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like losing control, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels like OCD does kind of can take over and like it drives the bus for people. And I know it did for me. Uh, yeah. Getting back to the subtypes or the themes, we also have just right OCD. This is sometimes also called perfectionism, OCD. And perfectionism can be a form of OCD for those that are like, I just am a perfectionist. Okay, are you a perfectionist or do you have OCD? And this is where you need things to be a certain way, like you have a lot of distress when things aren't quote unquote perfect in your mind. I often worry, this is one of the themes I have. I often worry that like I'm gonna get fired or I'm gonna cause irreparable damage to a relationship because I didn't do or say things perfectly in that interaction, or cause irreparable damage to my therapy participants because I didn't, like do or say things exactly how I thought I needed to. Then we have kind of the classic, what people think of, contamination OCD. This is another subtype or theme I have. It got real, real bad around the height of COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, but like lots of hand washing, not being able to touch things in public with my bare hands, using barriers to touch things like my arm or a shirt sleeve, lots of hand sanitizing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the classic one.
Hmm.
And then there's what's called pure OCD, so pure obsessions. This is where someone, which is such a misleading title. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to share? I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I want to give an opportunity for you to share about any of these
No,
subtypes
I'm
or
good with
themes.
you sharing. So please carry on.
Okay.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm getting out of breath. I don't know why, but so pure OOCD is where a person, a lot of their OCD just happens mentally. And so, again, this is not to say that they don't have compulsions because mental compulsions are compulsions. So, this is, yeah, just a lot of like thinking, mental review, mentally replaying information, kind of planning out the what ifs or thinking about the what ifs, and then problem solving for the problems that could happen, and doing a lot mentally to kind of reduce their distress or to quote unquote prevent the bad thing from happening. And then we have scrupulosity, religious or moral OCD. So this is where a person really might fear like upsetting a higher power or doing things against their moral code. They might do a lot of praying to kind of like undo something that they did that was against their religious or moral ethical guidelines. Then we have hit and run OCD. So this is where a person might fear that they hit someone without realizing it and they killed someone or hurt someone. So while they're driving, they might repeatedly check behind them like, "Oh, I felt a bump. I must have hit someone." They might actually physically turn their car around to go to where they think they hit someone. And then we have a real event OCD. So this is where a person might kind of doubt whether or not the things that they feel like happened actually happened. And so I also want to say OCD used to be called the doubting disorder. And that's really what it is it's a lot of doubt that we experience. It plants seeds of doubts in our mind, and then those kind of OCD lets them flourish, or like they flourish in our mind, and we're trying to resolve that doubt is essentially like what it is. We can't tolerate uncertainty, because it causes so much distress, and OCD loves to create that doubt and maintain that doubt. Yeah, anything you'd want to add?
I don't think so. My brain works in examples as you're talking. It's fascinating to me to see how we work differently.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Were there examples you want to give? Because in case anyone else's brain works in that way.
Yeah, but I have a hard time remembering which they are. I definitely had with COVID. I already was a little germophobia, but COVID, ugh. I remember after my kids would come because they weren't masking and we did, I'd take alcohol and wipe down the light switches and the doorknobs, and we were washing our groceries. And yeah, I also have a medical background, so needing to know what protocols are to not spread infection probably fed some of that OCD.
Mm.
And I was thinking about, I told you when I walk the dogs, every time after I pick up dog poop, I smell my fingers. And my son does it. So I just thought like that's a normal thing. And you said, no, I don't think so. And you asked me, like, what would it be like to not smell your fingers? And I tried it and it's been fine. And then there are times when sometimes it's a little bit messy and I do get poop on my fingers. And it's like, now what do I do? It's like, okay, can I not smell them? Is it normal to smell them? That's one of the ways it comes up for me.
Mm.
I would suspect too that for people that are high internalizers with their autism, that part of how we regulate, part of how I survived was using my mind. And with my PDA, even being in school, like you have my body, but you don't have my mind. So I would do a lot of counting, a lot of things that just help me to stay regulated. And my hangers have to be all the same color. My clothes have to be facing the same way. I've gotten better about not reorganizing dishes in the dishwasher, but sometimes it bugs me. But trying to figure out what things can I let go and what things need to be a certain way. And I suspect because I've been with my husband for almost 28 years, married, that there are lots of ways that he's accommodated me that probably would flare more. I think it's also very hard that if you are the partner of someone who has OCD, because OCD will say, if you only did this, then I'd feel better. And we have a rule in my house is don't touch my stuff, don't move my stuff. And so the other day, it's like, I've been making iced tea. Are you done with these tea bags? Can I throw them out? Because sometimes I reuse tea bags. Are you done with this
Mm.
glass? Can I wash it out? So I think in some ways my husband is probably a little jumpy because before I knew that I had OCD, I do. I'm very specific about how I want things. And if you have a mind that, if you pride yourself on being efficient, and I think this is part of the OCD, thinking about the most efficient ways to do things, the order in which to do things, that's kind of a cover up for the OCD, or it can be.
Mm. I mean, so here's the thing is I want to say when you're talking about contamination, I want to be clear that like following because at the time, like those were the guidelines was
Mm-hmm.
to wash, your groceries and to like sanitize things like light switches. Like that's not OCD, right? When we're following like guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
that's not OCD. When we're going above and beyond that and doing that excessively, like more than we need to, like washing my hands multiple times or for a
Mm-hmm.
minute, like that's excessive.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be clear about that. And like everyone's COVID precautions are different. Like I still mask in public. And so some people might be like, oh, that's OCD. It's like, no, actually, I'm immunocompromised.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get vaccinated. So, like, because that's a whole nother story. But yeah, long story short, I think I had a MCAS reaction. I had anaphylaxis to the vaccine. So I can't get any further vaccines.
Do you want to say what MCAS is?
Oh, mast cell activation syndrome, which is essentially where your body produces too many mast cells and produce an allergic response to things that maybe you're not actually allergic to, but it can lead to anaphylaxis.
Yeah.
But right, but like some people might be like, "Oh, that's OCD." It's like, "No, actually, I need to I
Mm-hmm.
have to mask because like I can't vaccinate and I am immunocompromised." So, right, I think with the contamination, it's it's going to be very personal to each person what's excessive for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but if we're washing our hands for more than 20 seconds, like yeah, that's maybe excessive, or I will wash a knife several times that touched raw meat because I'm, like, very concerned about getting salmonella. That's excessive. And I also wanna say, like, I don't know, I think autism does include having difficulty when our stuff is touched and moved,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to think that was OCD, but since I started doing autism assessments, I'm like, "No, actually, this is just part of being autistic."
I think it's
Is
part of ADHD too, because I need those visual cues about where my
Mhm.
things are. And I will remember that it's in the back, hidden behind the corner of something, and I will go get it 3 months later. But if it's not there, then it's very distressing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, right, like, it can be OCD if we're spending a lot of time reorganizing. If it's like, maybe I have a crystal on my desk. Like if the crystal is not set on the desk in lined up perfectly, flush with the edge of the upper part of my desk, and I'm spending time doing that, right, that may be OCD. But if it's like, all right, I know my coffee maker is going to be in the same spot. I leave my coffee mug there. If someone moves those things from that spot,
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe not OCD. That's maybe like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think the efficiency thing too, I see that a lot with ADHDers and
Mm-hmm.
ADHDers and autistic people. Like we like things efficient. We like our systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it can dip into OCD territory. And I also think that's just part of our neurotype.
Yeah. I was always told that when the structure becomes a cage, then
Hmm.
it's probably OCD and it's not working. That when it has to be done that way and there's not any other option and it's distressing, then that could be an indication that it's OCD.
I used to think that too, but I'm like, I think that's just part of being autistic.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's like because we find safety in having those routines give us safety.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think it depends. I think it depends on like what's coming up when those routines aren't able to be followed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I don't think it's as black and white as it's OCD. I don't think it's as black and white as that. And the book, the Adult Autism Assessment Handbook, talks about like they talk about a lot of the common co-occurring. And for those that don't know, co-occurring is like something that happens alongside something else. So OCD happens often with autism, or they co-occur together. But they talk about OCD like in one of the sections of the book. They talk about how it maybe isn't really all that important when there is overlap of like this is an autistic thing and this is an OCD thing. Like it's really not all that
Mm-hmm.
important to be able to differentiate. It's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I say that and also say that sometimes it is for me. I do need to differentiate because I don't want to quote unquote treat someone's autism. Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
the goal.
Mm-mm.
But I also think like I don't want to spend all this time with a therapy participant. I'm fine doing it now because I think this is important dialogue. But I'm not going to spend all this time trying to be like, is it OCD? Is it autism? Like, right? How much is it impacting your life? Do you
Yeah.
find safety in that? Does it bring you joy if you're able to do that? To me, that's the kind
Mm-hmm.
of indicator. Like, does it bring you joy? Do you feel soothed when you're doing it? Or are you trying to prevent something bad from happening?
Yeah.
Those are kind of the questions that I try and ask to differentiate. And sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
can't, and that's okay.
Yeah. I don't know that this falls under OCD, but with perfectionism, I think there's this concept, at least I used to have it, of that means that you do everything perfectly. But often what it means is you don't do very many things because if you can't do it perfectly, then you don't do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this real disconnect between how can I be a perfectionist if my house is messy and I can't keep things orderly, but you can still be a perfectionist. You just don't do it. You don't do the thing because if you can't do it perfectly, then there's no point in doing it. Can you say a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more about that?
Yeah, I know. I think that's a great example. I think also like I ways it's shown up for me is spending a lot of time on something, like spending 15, 20 minutes writing a note where the recommendation is like under 5, like 5 or less.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because then you're spending so much time on notes, but like rereading things. I didn't like the way that sounded. Oh, what if someone reads that and thinks something else? Like I mean something else. I need to be more clear. So like rereading, redoing, like the kind of yeah, just spending too much time on it and making it perfect in the way that you think perfect is and trying to
Mm-hmm.
prevent a bad outcome from happening. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, the just right OCD is like, "Oh, it just doesn't feel right, and I can't tolerate it not feeling right." Sometimes it's
Mhm.
not about, like, an outcome. It's like, "This is intolerable. Oh, well, I need to be standing because sitting doesn't feel right, and if I'm not standing, like or if I'm sitting, then I just can't tolerate that not feeling right."
Mhm.
Yeah, but I think you're right, like, some people's perfectionism might stop them from starting a task, or, like, they might, yeah, take a lot of time doing a thing because they need to perfect it. I'm trying to use other words, but I'm having a hard time, like, thinking of
Mhm.
other words. This might be writing a text over again until it sounds just right. It
Mm.
might be, ordering and arranging things until they're just right. Yeah, like you said, kind of I like to have my clothes face the same way, and that could be, right, an autism preference thing, but also, like, I don't know, if someone's spending a lot of time, like, redoing those things.
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like I'm having a hard time thinking of examples right now.
I had one, but I forgot what it was. It slipped away.
Mm. Can I share some facts?
Please.
So, research shows that the average person goes 14 to 17 years before receiving an OCD diagnosis. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. It was more than that for me.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. When were you identified or diagnosed?
I was either 60 or 61.
Mm,
I think what happens though is that we often choose people that are neurodivergent, but we don't know that we're neurodivergent or they know that they're neurodivergent. Because I specifically remember when I was in my 30s working with a group of people and we joked about alphabetizing our spices.
mm,
And I always was interested in, I think that camouflaging, trying to fit in, struggling with things. And part of me loved things that were hyper organized. And I loved having a label maker. And when I found people that had systems, I liked following those. And so that felt normal because that's what the people around me were doing.
mm,
So I think that that's another factor. Or a lot of the things that I struggle with, my mom had very lots of rules around food and how long you keep it out and when things go bad. And so I have a lot of those very same things, but my husband and my boys don't have it. And the combination of being autistic and then being more cautious about things like COVID and things going bad makes me look like I'm the one that's always hyper vigilant. And
mm,
that's not a great feeling either.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, I think the systematizing I think that's, like, our bottom up processing. Like, I think I
Mm-hmm.
also enjoy that, but I have fun when I'm doing it, which
Mm-hmm.
is, like, so geeky. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
reorganized this like standard operating procedures at the group practice I'm at, and I had so much fun reorganizing it and, like, creating the system for it. I enjoyed the shit out of that. Like, I was up till
Mm-hmm.
3 a.m., you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. To me, right, if there's joy there, and if that we're doing that because that brings us joy, it soothes us, like, and our brains like that
Mm-hmm.
system. I don't
Systemization.
thank you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I Marie Kondoed my room once, but I knew that if I put everything out on the bed, I'd get overwhelmed and then I'd shove it to the floor, to a chair, to another room.
Mm,
So I had to do one drawer at a time because I
mm,
knew that I would get really overwhelmed doing that. But I like when there's order and when things have a place. It really helps me. And there are certain areas where I just struggle so much with where do I put things and where does this go,
mhm.
which is diverging a little bit from OCD.
Well, right, but I think it's like the same conversation of like OCD versus like autism, ADHD, because
Mm-hmm.
also like I need my clothes to be, I have them organized by color, by like dresses and skirts in one section, tank tops in another, t-shirts in
Mm-hmm.
another, long sleeve, right? But they're organized by color, but that just makes it easier for me
Yeah.
to get ready and find what I'm looking for. And same when you're talking about, like, visual cues, I need those too, like, I need things
Mm-hmm.
out because I one, if it's not out and it's going to take more steps for me to do a thing, I'm probably not going to do it because PDA and executive functioning challenges. And also, like, I need those reminders. Like, I have to leave something on my floor in my walk path if I like need to remember to bring it with me. Right. I think that's kind of ways we've found to compensate and like work with our brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about a friend who worries that the garage door isn't closed. And so what she does is she repeats to herself 5 times that it's closed, but she also takes a picture when she leaves the house so that when that doubt arises, then she can go back and look. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking that's probably reinforcing the OCD.
Yeah, that sounds like OCD. I'm not diagnosing your friend, but that sounds excessive.
No, yeah. I guess I was thinking that was a good workaround for the skill that she has.
I think like, right, saying to yourself though, like, I have to do that too. Like, I'll have to be like, okay, I heard the door lock. I felt my hand touch the thing. Like, as I'm doing it, I kind of have to say that in my head or out loud. Right. But if I'm going back then in my memory to check again, I said it out loud already. I felt it. And now I'm going back to check again. And I took a picture and I'm checking again. That like that's checking. That's right. So checking is a compulsion. And so right. But I also think sometimes like I think I did something and I actually didn't. And so I think right for those of us that are ADHDers, like it can lead to compulsive behavior because we do forget things or we do think we did something and actually no, we didn't.
Yeah. We need to wrap up. I do want to say one more thing. I think about it often when I get that looping behavior is the old-fashioned train tracks. If you ever saw train tracks as a kid that you could control and the train is going one way and you want to pull the lever to put the train on another track to kind of get it off that looping track, that's a visual that I often talk about with clients and with myself when I find that I'm looping, that like we need to get the train on another track right now.
Yeah, I like that analogy. I'm going to be honest, I have more to say. So I feel like maybe we can make this another part because I feel like I didn't really talk all that much about all the ways it has shown up for me. Yeah, I'm seeing a thumbs up. Okay, cool. So we'll make this a part 2.
Sounds good. Alex, thank you so much for all of the information today about OCD. You have so much to share. I have so much respect and admiration for your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for letting me input them.
I love it. If you're interested in working with me or learning more about me, you can find me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. I love working with therapists. If you're neurodivergent, if you suspect you're neurodivergent, relationships, boundaries, parenting, those are the things that I do the best with. I'm really a relational therapist and love working with folks. How about you, Alex? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my practice's name is The Divergent Grove Therapy. And if you just go to thedivergentgrovetherapy.com, you can find my practice. I see folks on Wapakoti land, colonized as Minnesota. I really enjoy working with autistic, ADHDers, folks with OCD. I'm trained in exposure and response prevention and inference-based cognitive behavioral therapy, and I adapt those to be neurodivergent affirming. So I really enjoy working with folks with those neurotypes. I also offer autism and ADHD assessments. I have a few groups coming up. One of them is a late identified, late diagnosed group, and then another is an autistic burnout group. And pretty soon I'll be launching a coaching practice. Probably by the time that this airs, that it'll be live. So a coaching, consulting, and training practice, I should say. So with all of that info right now, as I'm recording this episode, can be found on that website that I mentioned.
All right. And if you want to reach out to either one of us, we can be reached at unapologeticallyadhd@gmail.com. And all of this is in the show notes.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye. Thanks for spending time with us in this space where your too muchness is never too much. Remember, you're not broken and you're definitely not alone. We're here to honor the complexity, celebrate the nuance, and walk this neurodivergent path together.
You might consider giving us a rating and a review on the platform you listen to podcasts. It gives others an opportunity to see our podcast and walk this path with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind to your nervous system, and stay unapologetically ADHD. You belong here.